Hey Grace House Churches, my name is Scott and this is the week of February 26th. I want to welcome you to the weekly. Today we're going to talk about the contrast painted from our passage, the contrast being exaltation versus humility. So if you remember from Sunday, we're finishing chapter 12 in the Gospel of Mark, and it's verses 35 to 44. And those verses are comprised by three different sections. And so what I want to do a little bit here, what I did on Sunday, is explain not just the content of those three sections, but how they actually fit together. Because you could read those and say those are totally different and they don't fit at all. But it does make sense that they fit together. And so the very first section that I want to address is verses 35 to 37. So just a couple verses there. In your Bible, it usually has a title and then the text, and then it goes to the next section. But these couple verses are talking about how Jesus actually is questioning the religious leaders in the temple. That's the setting. He's questioning the scribes after they just got done berating him and trying to trap him in questions and the things we've been talking about in the past few weeks. But he starts turning it on them. So he asks them these questions, and the questions are around the words of David and David calling his son Lord, or his descendants Lord. And within those couple verses, Jesus also quotes Psalm 110. Psalm 110, what's really cool about the fact that he quoted it is two things. Number one, Psalm 110 is the most popular Old Testament verse passage quoted by the New Testament authors. So it was very, very popular for the New Testament authors to quote Psalm 110. The second piece that's really cool is that Psalm 110, back in the days of the monarchy of Israel, that was used in the coronation ceremony of a new king. So think about that for a moment. Jesus is quoting Psalm 110 that was previously used way back in history during the ceremonies of ushering in a new king. And now he's using it. In those couple verses, just to summarize, it is Jesus in a brilliant way declaring who he is, pointing back to the lineage of David, pointing to Psalm 110 and that coronation ceremony declaration of a new king, saying that I, Jesus, I am the new king. I am the Messiah from the lineage of David. And so we talked about that on Sunday. And so the first section is really Jesus declaring, I am him. I am the Messiah, the one that has been prophesied to come to save the world. So a beautiful truth out of that first section. The second section I explained on Sunday is verses 38 to 40. And so these couple of verses, Jesus really mocks the scribes. And he really says, hey, I want to warn you, beware of these religious leaders who walk around in these long robes, and they pray out loud so people can hear them, and they sit at the place of honor at banquets and in the synagogues. And not only that they put themselves up above other people, but they devour the houses of widows. So they're taking advantage of people. And so Jesus says, hey, this religiosity, these people that are so highly religious, beware of these people. They will take advantage of you. And then it goes into the third section. And the third section is all about the widow. So Jesus kind of goes into another area in the court in the temple, and he sits down and he's watching people give the offering to the temple, and there's these boxes that are positioned around. And so he's sitting there and he's watching. First of all, I just love that Jesus is like a people watcher, because I'm a people watcher too. And so he's people watching, and he notices this really, really poor lady, this widow. And she goes and she gives these two coins that kind of, a lot of the translations say added up to a penny. And he states that's all she had. And he goes, hey, disciples, come here, let me show you something. And he points to her. In her poverty, in her humility, he exalts her. So you have these two juxtaposition types of people, where big picture, Jesus is declaring at the very top, I am the Lord. I am the King. I am the Messiah. And then there's two different responses of him being the Messiah. There's the scribes, who just in a man-made way, they are exalting themselves, puffing themselves up, taking advantage of other people. It's really the world system, right? And then he looks at the widow, and the widow who is just out of worship to the Lord and her faithfulness and her sacrifice, she gives everything she can to the temple, to the scribes. Remember, by the way, they're the ones that devour the houses of widows. And yet she's so humble and so faithful and so sacrificial. She gives everything that she has. What an amazing correlation, and how those verses and how this passage work together. And so that leaves us with kind of these questions that your leader is going to talk about. But this is about Jesus as the Messiah and the Lord. And if we believe that, what does that mean for us as disciples of Jesus? And so in the sermon, I said this quote. I said, what it means to know and follow Jesus is marked not by exaltation, but by humility. And so I'm going to turn it over to your house church leader, go through these discussion questions, and really paint the picture and the contrast between these two. And maybe even ask yourself, are you more like the scribe or are you like the widow?